Hey folks, MasterCoX here. Everybody has wanted to know for the longest time about what Piccolo might do once the biological clock stops ticking for his friends and allies. Namekians, you see, can live for centuries, and it has been shown in the game Dragon Ball Online that he and Dende are some of the only ones left still alive on Earth in age 1000, 220 years after the events of Super. Surely, in that time, he would have had a kid of his own, right? To make things pass by a little more smoothly? Or even replace Tom? Well, sure, we could cover that, but why don't we add some peril here? Near something that his father had done for him. Have future Piccolo sire child, and the others have to deal with the fallout in the moment of crisis when the android struck. In the last part, we had the idea of future Gohan coming back with his charge, who is known as Basri. An Indian flute, by the way, trying to get some ideas as to what they could do to try and encourage the little guy to grow up a little bit. You see, Basri remained in his juvenile infant form for nearly a decade at this point, no sign of aging up at all, or even being able to talk. But he still possessed remarkable powers which were able to bring Gohan back from the brink of snuffing it at the hands of 17 and 18. But things got a little more awkward when Basri immediately called past Piccolo Dada. Things had to be addressed pronto. Future Gohan felt comfortable enough to leave Basri here in the past to try and see if he could grow a little bit. Feel confident enough to be able to develop without the risk of any androids breathing down their necks. Can they breathe though? I've never been sure about that. Anyway, Basri was not complying with any of this. He put on a brave face for future Gohan, but when he left, he became a very annoying problem right away. In the end, this during the 3-year training cycle for the droids, Piccolo had to resort to swallowing his pride and ask Kami for help in this matter. But even though Kami had a link with him, he was still completely blindsided with the revelation of Basri, which we will now see play out as we resume. After processing the news, Piccolo's other half spoke. "Future son." Kami raised an eyebrow as the words tumbled out of his mouth. Piccolo closed his eyes and sighed. "Yeah, I know. I was surprised as well. The thing is, the little runt isn't playing along." "Playing along?" "Piccolo, children aren't little adults. They need much clearer—" "He doesn't even want to bond with me! Piccolo shouted that, but then pulled back his frustration, not wanting to come across as weak toward his other half. Annoying. I don't get it. I was able to bond with Gohan way back when I was yelling at him in the forest, when dinosaurs were chasing him. He's half Saiyan and we made it work. So why can't I communicate with my own son? He's supposed to be my offspring. Well, the future version of me's offspring." Kami smiled and gave a little chuckle, seemingly amused at Piccolo's predicament. "Oh my, I must say that this is the longest speech you have managed to present to me in all the time of us being separate, without throwing an insult at me once. I'm actually impressed." Piccolo scowled. "Ha, very funny. Are you gonna help me or not? Or am I wasting my time?" The older Namekian pondered for a while. He wasn't entirely sure how he could help. Granted, he was a guardian of billions of people, but he had no clue how to raise a Namekian infant. "You do realize that I have very little recollection in regards to our childhood on Namek, right? However, I will see what I can do to help you in some way. I may try telepathy." "Tried it. It was non-stop wailing. It's even more painful when it's bouncing around inside your head." "Well, it will when you go wading in there unprepared. I will try to be more delicate. You may have mellowed out greatly in the years since meeting Gohan, but you still have a lot left to work on." And so, asking Gohan for help, Piccolo brought Basri before Kami a few hours later. As long as Gohan was around, the little guy was quite agreeable with most things happening around him. He didn't really wail or complain. This made Piccolo feel even more resentful. When Basri and Kami's eyes met, the former tilted his head a little to the right, mildly curious of the latter. He had never seen him before, but he felt very familiar though. "All right, little one, let's talk. I promise I will be gentle." Kami closed his eyes and started to slowly read Basri's mind, doing his very best not to scare him. The toddler, at first though, still seemed a little nervous about this. You could see his eye twitching and he was sniffling, about to cry, but Gohan sat by him, always in his field of vision, to provide assurance that nothing bad could possibly happen from this. Piccolo, however, was looking at both Kami and Basri, then gazing at Kami again, perplexed as to why the old man's face had gotten weirdly tense. What was he sensing? After a few minutes of this, which felt like an eternity to Gohan and Piccolo, Kami opened his eyes, and Basri hadn't cried once. Whew, it is rather uncanny.
Well, what is?
Gohan and Piccolo asked in unison, then desperate to find out something, anything, about what was going on inside Basri's head.
No wonder he's so confused. It's clear to me that this poem might have been defined by a highly traumatic event. Much like you, Piccolo.
Piccolo looked down, feeling somewhat responsible for this. Even though it was his future self that had done the deed here, he had done nothing wrong.
The resulting emotional distress has culminated in a manner which is highly irregular. His powers seem very heightened as well, and yet erratic. I am only able to read his basic emotions at this time, but according to you, he is clearly able to understand speech. He can communicate in some manner. Also, he should be fully grown by now, but his body has been purposefully halting the process the whole time.
Gohan and Piccolo's eyes widened. There wasn't anything wrong with him after all.
It's that he has control over it? His aging?
Takiko thought it was caused by outside influences. That he was stunted because of being born around the androids.
Kami shook his head.
That's partly accurate. I think that he's been holding back his development, albeit subconsciously. It's like a lock, you see. To him, he is unaware of it being an issue, but if we can help him open his mind, he might show us his full potential. He has created his own sort of defense system, which is quite remarkable in of itself.
After those words, Kami then sent a telepathic message to Piccolo, so that neither Gohan or Basri could hear what he had in store next, or what else he found out.
And another thing, Piccolo, I didn't want to say this in front of them, but he appears to have traits of both Dragon Clan and Warrior Clan Namekians. Don't ask me how this is possible, or how I'm certain about this. It's just a feeling. A feeling that his mind left me with, like he was trying to tell me something without telling me.
Piccolo looked at the kid. He started to feel less aggravated with him after finding out a little bit more about his makeup. He could relate more in some ways. His own childhood wasn't exactly easy, even though he was found by some nice people, which thankfully steered him down a less malevolent path. But he could only begin to imagine what was so traumatic in the future that had caused Basri to withdraw within himself into that toddler-like form, forcefully stopping himself from growing up.
Anyway, that is all I can glean for now. If you want more information, you would probably have to ask Elder Mori or a different Namekian for a deeper dive.
Shame that Takiko wasn't here though to find out.
Yeah, let's take him home so not to stress him anymore. He's been through enough.
Piccolo eyed Basri, and after they thanked Kami for his assistance, they brought him back to the others. During his time in the past, everybody liked the little guy. Although Goku was complaining a little bit that you couldn't even lift his mood up with a snack. Food, in his eyes, usually worked wonders for children, no matter what their mood. Chi-Chi had to remind him that Basri wasn't a regular child. Technically, he was the same age as Gohan, albeit cerebrally. Piccolo also retorted that Namekians can eat food as a social mechanism, but they didn't have to. And Bulma and Chi-Chi were adamant that giving him anything at that young age could also have bad effects. He may not be used to human or regular food. So just like with their future counterparts, Basri stayed with them very often, and he was watching when the group was training for the coming of the androids. He paid close attention, him recalling Gohan and Trunks training when he was left in his seat, occasionally taking a nap. But even when he was fine watching everyone else having a sparring match, there was a weird quirk that he had whenever Gohan and Piccolo trained together. The first time he witnessed them exchanging punches, the pair of them then realized that he ended up standing between them, as if he were trying to prevent them from doing anything, him having somehow freed himself from his carrier, looking mightily distressed too. What was going on?
Hey, be careful!
Mr. Piccolo, that's not the way to talk to him. Basri, relax. We're not fighting for real. We're still friends. It's training. You don't need to be worried.
He doesn't like us fighting, huh?
Piccolo seemed surprised. It took a good few goes to calm him down and make him accustomed to something as regular as Piccolo and Gohan training, and they checked out different pairings to see if he had a similar reaction. He wasn't worried when it was Goku and Gohan training, or Piccolo and Goku, or either of them with Krillin. It was just those two. Piccolo thought to himself that at least this seemed like progress, that he wouldn't get in their way anymore, and maybe it was a sign that the kid did care about him after all, that he was wanting to defend him. Or maybe he simply didn't like the idea of Gohan fighting a Namekian. After all, the others didn't know about Takiko. Only he and Goku knew the truth about his identity. One day, when the supposed invasion of the androids was fast approaching, Piccolo took a moment, when Basri was calm, to train with him alone. He was showing him how to make a simple ki blast. His thinking is that since he possessed traits of a warrior clan Namekian, that trying to produce a ki blast might be possible. He might be able to produce such manifestations.
Look at my hand. Now focus your energy. I know you can understand me.
Basri looked at him in a shy manner. At least he wasn't crying anymore at the very sight of him. Piccolo was very relieved about that, as well as his ears. But he was still looking at Piccolo with a very defeatist look in his eyes. Like he didn't want to be there, or he was showing copious amounts of pessimism and stress in terms of his abilities. Or that, based on his resurrection technique thingy with Gohan, producing energy was painful.
What's the matter with you? At least try. No one has ever done it perfectly the first time.
But instead of this bolstering his confidence, this little bit of news just made Basri look even more depressed with this lot. His shoulders hunched. He was now looking at the ground.
I don't know how to help you. If you won't accept my teachings, then what good are you?
Piccolo then sat grumpily next to him, Basri flinching, backing away a little. He could sense that Piccolo was this close to snapping.
It's frustrating, you know. You're pushing back at everything we do. Can't you see that we're trying to help you? We want you to get over what it is that's holding you back. Be the person who you're destined and deserve to be. But you need to allow us to do that, okay?
Basri started to well up a little, as if he were about to cry. Again.
All right. No rushing, okay.
For the remainder of the day, Piccolo just meditated next to the toddler. Then, completely unaware that after a while, that Basri started to imitate him. The two of them sat quietly, practicing this for many hours. Then Piccolo looked at him one time and spotted that he was fast asleep. He had meditated himself into a deep slumber. It was the calmest he ever looked since he got here. Piccolo thought, good. The peaceful time soon drew to a close though, as the rules of this universe dictate that the time of the androids arrived. That and Bulma now had Trunks. They did notice that Basri really liked to be around the baby, so the poor scientist was often seen with the two kids, when Gohan needed some time off from Basri. Bulma liked being a mother, sure, but she wasn't expecting to be effectively looking after twins. But on the day of the supposed android invasion, May 12th, it was very hard to calm Basri down. Despite his more relaxed nature recently, it was like all of that had gone out the window, like it never happened. The little one cried constantly and was very distressed, just like almost as if he knew that this was the day when everything changed.
Ugh, what's up with him today? Complained Yamcha, covering his ears. He's usually such a good little guy.
Piccolo looked at the little guy.
I think he senses it.
Senses what? Said Yamcha frustratedly.
That they're coming.
It was quite obvious that the only person Basri wanted to be around today was Gohan. But Bulma looked skeptical about this. Do you really want to take a baby into battle? That's really irresponsible! Around those androids of all things?
To my knowledge, he's already seen them. He knows what they look like. So it actually might be pretty useful when it comes to trying to identify them. Besides, he's tough enough to hold his own. He's managed to survive the future.
Piccolo was trying not to look worried, but he wasn't really a fan of this idea either. And as such, our heroes went to a Membo Island to look for clues, which worked as well as it did in the original. Yamcha got found by Jiro and 19, who mistook him for Goku. And when the others arrived, they saw the old man and the clown. But what concerned Piccolo the most was the fact that Basri was also surprised by these two. That could be the element of the trauma, yeah, but honestly, after what Takiko had told them, were they really the droids that they were looking for? After the fight moved to a more rocky area, everyone quickly realized that Goku wasn't feeling all that well. 19 almost won their duel, in fact, but Vegeta came in at the right time, taunting Jiro and his automaton. He was also quite surprised to see Basari still knocking around.
Well, well, looks like you managed to keep that whelp alive after all. No matter.
Vegeta then turned Super Saiyan, and just like in the original, he managed to defeat 19 easily, which prompted Gero to escape, and Piccolo to follow soon after. Gohan and Basari went with Bulma in order to transport Goku back to Kame House. But when they placed the Saiyan in a comfortable spot on the plane, the little guy then started to walk over to him, to the sedated Saiyan, placing his two little hands on him. And something started to happen. Something curious. Meanwhile, not so far away from here, a time capsule appeared. Takiko and Trunks, who came out of the vessel, were quite surprised to see Android 19's head. Whatever this was, they were not prepared. But that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now. If you like this idea where Piccolo had a son, what about the time when Frieza had a son? That was quite a humdinger, I must say. But I'll see you in the next video. Catch you later!